Good afternoon, Cochise County, and welcome to the Michael Zehr Show. Today is Friday, July 15th, coming to you from the Warrior Healing Center's freezing cold Rising Eagle Studios. I think it's a little chilly in here, or is it just me? No, I guess it's just me. So, today we're going to do something a little different. Don Anderson. Don, thank you so much for joining us here at the Warrior Healing Center. Don is a Vietnam veteran, and he's going to be sharing some photos and some of his experience while he was in Vietnam. I've never done this photo thing, so it will be quite an experience. I'm quite excited to try this out because it might be a new feature that we can offer future guests too. So, Don, you get to be the guinea pig, huh? Oh, we met, what was it? You said a bagel and brew here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw you sitting alone or something and had you sit at the table, or I don't know. It's just it's a great event because of the bagel and brew, because it has that camaraderie of everybody, and it's a great event. So if anybody does get a chance to ever attend one, I highly recommend it. So, first off, where did you live at the time, and were you drafted? Did you enlist? What was the story there?
I got out of high school in May of '65, and then after I got out of high school, I worked for a house construction company in Ames, Iowa for a year and a half till I was 19. And at that time, if you didn't have a deferment, you're automatically had an induction notice from the Army. So when I got that, I joined the Marine Corps because I worked around a bunch of World War II veterans at the construction company I worked at.
Okay.
So anyway, I joined up in August, and I went to boot camp in November of
Where'd you go?
'66 in San Diego, California.
San Diego, and you were in Marines.
And then after that, I went to 2 weeks of infantry training at Camp Pendleton, California. And then after that, I went to 5 months of ordnance school in Jacksonville, Florida.
Jacksonville, Florida.
After that, I was sent to El Toro Marine Base in Orange County, California for approximately 3 or 4 months until I got sent to Vietnam in November of '67.
Of 67. And how long were you in the Marine Corps for?
4 years.
For 4 years. What would you say was one of your greatest? I'm trying to think of what the right word to be here is. Like, not really attribute, but what is one of the best things that you learned from the Marine Corps for joining?
I learned that every day is a precious day because you never know when the next day you're going to lose your life. Especially after the Vietnam experience. So I had a great appreciation for the Marine Corps, how the training that we had. That I think it gave us a heads up on surviving the experience.
Okay.
Through our training that we got in Vietnam to basically be alert at all times and be conscious of your surroundings at all times.
Were you married when you went in at the time?
No, I was single.
You were single. Okay. So you went to Vietnam from where again? You deployed from where?
I went from El Toro to Vietnam.
To Vietnam, and you were there for how long?
13 months.
For 13 months. Okay, that's a pretty long time for one tour, right?
Yeah, that was the most people served that tour at that time, 13 months.
It was 13 months, okay.
Army, Marine Corps, we basically had the same tour duty. I went there in November '67 and come back in December '68. So I spent 2 Thanksgiving there and 1 Christmas.
And did you meet a lot of fellow Marines and other branches there, or
somewhat? But after you've been there a while, it's kind of hard to explain. But you don't know who's going to leave you next for some reason or another. So
right.
For psychological reasons, you are friendly with people, but not.
You don't want to get too friendly.
Yeah, that's about it.
Wow. Yeah, I couldn't imagine being in that situation. I myself was not in a combat era when I served, so I have no idea what some of your experiences are. So by you sitting down and sharing what your experience was over there, and with these photos that we have and everything, I think that it helps us to educate. It keeps us. It gives us a little bit more of our history and what our people before us, what their sacrifices were.
Yeah, I think it's a very important part of history.
And when you came back from Vietnam, what year was that?
It was in December '68, and then I had 30 days leave, so
Okay.
I had my orders to report to Yuma Marine Corps Air Station, Yuma, Arizona. So I got there in January of 1969, and I spent 22 months there before I was released from the Marine Corps in November of 1970.
And then after you were out of the Marine Corps, did you join like the National Guard, or were there any kind of reserves or
Well,
anything that you were in?
I had 4 years active duty on my agreement.
Okay.
But everybody after 4 years is required to be 2 years inactive reserve.
Okay.
So that's what I did. I just had to report to a naval recruiting station in a town nearest me where I lived in Iowa, where I was from. And they gave you like an ID card that you were inactive reservist. But in case they would call you up if they ran out of active duty personnel.
Okay. So let's go through some of the photos that you brought in here that you wanted to share with us today. So again, this is a first, so hopefully we don't have any slip-ups or foobar here. So let's see if I hit that. And let's see if I hit that. And look at that.
This was when I was belting 100 round 7.62 belts came in each one of those cartons.
Okay.
We built 5 of them together to make 500 rounds, and we put those in a 50 caliber box. So in our Hueys for our M60 machine guns, we could fire 500 rounds without hooking up another belt.
Oh, okay. All right. Check you out there, man. All muscle and everything. And how old were you again at that time?
I was 19.
19 years old. Okay, let's look at our next picture.
No, actually I was 20 there.
20?
20
Okay.
years old.
All right, so what do we got here?
That's a C-130 that came in. Our ordnance compound on Quang Tree was off to the side of the runway, but near the middle. And so we've seen a lot of different things happen there. And one was a C-130 transport plane that brought in cargo, plus it was a main plane for transporting troops back and forth from different places. Anyway, this particular C-130 came in, and its engine came dislodged, and it flipped over.
Oh, my.
And the propeller went through the fuselage, and it started on fire. It was full of CBs from a compound near us on Quang Tree, and I think there were 6 CBs killed, and 15 or 20 burned real bad. So it was I just happened to have my camera there that day, and I took a picture of it about right after it happened. And the crash crew was relatively close across the way on the runway, so they got there fairly rapidly after it happened to foam it down. So before they got there, the damage was already done to the CBs.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that somebody lost. Hey, Dan, thank you so much for joining us. And Semper Fi, as the Marines say. You know Dan pretty good?
Yes.
Yeah, good guy, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
All right, what do we got here?
He's one of the main reasons this is happening today.
Well, thank you, Dan. He did put some work in on this, and so did Tim Kirk. So I want to thank both of them for doing this.
Yeah, and he initially talked me into getting active in your organization here.
Good, good. All right, so what do we got here now?
This is Camp Carroll, where we had a rearming station. It was like halfway between Quang Tri and Quezon.
Uh-huh.
And I think it was like a part Army base and part Marine Corps base. It was an artillery combat area. And we were only there for like a week because didn't work out too good for us. Because there's some other pictures that will come up here after this one.
Okay.
That our rearming station is right near the 175 and the 8-inch guns. So at nighttime, we were only like 20 or 30 yards away from them. So all night long, they'd be firing away. Didn't get no sleep. Daytime, we were either screwing heads on the rockets for our supply we had for rearming, or rearming our helicopters. So after about a week, the pilots asked us, when we go back to Quang Tri, they want your opinion how this is working out here. I go, it isn't. Get us out of here now.
Really?
So they got us out of there the next day, and then I went back to Quang Tri for 2 weeks, and then they set up a rearming area in near LZ Stud, which is some photos that'll come up here shortly.
You know, I've never been to Vietnam, but boy, it sure looks an awful lot like Arizona with the mountains and everything. Is the climate a lot different, though?
Well, it's a lot more humid. You know, in Arizona we have low humidity, whereas in Vietnam it's high humidity all the time.
A lot of humidity over there?
And yeah.
Okay, let's see at the next photo here.
That's
what do we got here?
That's just a photo I took out of one of our helicopter when I was flying, going from point A to point B. I'm not too sure where this was.
Okay. And our next photo.
That's that same C-130 crash. You can see I took the picture from the compound, our ordnance compound.
Right.
So it was really close to thing happened right in front of us.
You can feel the heat, huh?
Well, I don't know. I can't remember about that, but I know it was just it was really a ferocious fire.
All right. Is that the same photo there? Or?
Yeah, of Camp Carroll, different photo.
Okay. All right. What do we got here now?
Here's a Vietnamese field workers going to work in the fields. I took that out of a 6x truck. Sometimes we took truck convoys to LZ Stud and Camp Carroll. Well, mostly LZ Stud when our helicopters weren't available to bring us our rockets. Most of the time we were supplied with helicopters with nets where they'd bring in them, and then there's a hook underneath and they'd drop them down in a location. But there's a few times where we took convoys, and I took these pictures sometimes out of the back of the truck.
Wow. Looks like they're... What are they working?
Pardon?
Looks like, what are they working there? Or?
Yeah, they're kind of like on the way to the fields.
Okay.
In transit.
Oh. Oh, wow, look at this bad
This
boy.
is a CH-34 helicopter. Is usually mostly for medevacs, and it took a nosedive, and you can see the damage. There's another picture, I think, that shows the bullet holes in the side. But they brought these down. Every time they bring them into our base, they drop them down near our ordnance compound for some reason. I think it's because there was more of a area they didn't use.
Right.
And so I had the advantage of taking a lot of pictures of downed helicopters they bring in. On this format, there's just a few helicopters, but I took pictures of several of them shot down over a period of several months.
Okay, and next.
This is Dong Ha ammo dump cook-off. In June of 1968, the NVA artillery hit the ammo dump, and you can see us sitting on top of our hooches observing.
Right.
And I got up on top of my hooch and took pictures, and it lasted for 3 or 4 hours. It was really quite the thing. In the compound they had in Dong Ha, there's like earthen sections between each one to kind of segregate the different areas. So the ordnance would fly up in the air and go down in another one, and then that one would blow up. And it lasted for several hours. It was quite a scene. That
be kind of like your own personal fireworks show, but a lot louder.
Yeah, that's why I don't really enjoy going to fireworks anymore. But anyway, that all that smoke is from the fuel dump too. Got hit, and it burned for several hours.
Wow. All right, and this photo right here.
This is a living quarters that we had in LZ Stud. There was two of us that were there most of the time. And then we'd rotate back to Quang Tree, either flying or assembling rockets. And that was a homemade hooch they made from the rocket boxes they had brought from Camp Curl when we abandoned that thing. And during 2 week period of time when we were back in Quang Tree, they had took those rocket boxes and made a little hut for us to sleep in.
Okay.
And then our arming area was just right down the hill from that, where the helicopters would stop. And we had a Conex box there full of rockets that we kept full as helicopters would come in to rearm. Sometimes they wouldn't come in for 1 or 2 days. Other times we'd have several in one day, just depending upon the missions that were happening at that time.
And then are those water cans? I'm
Yeah,
guessing
they're water
right
cans
outside
that we
there?
use for water, for drinking and taking a shower. We brought a gallon can from the mess hall in Quang Tree, and then we just pour the water over ourselves to take a shower.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Okay. And the next photo we have here, what kind of
That's an
plane we got here?
OV-10 aircraft that the Marine Corps had. It was a new one that had just come on line at that time recently, and it was only there for like 2 months, but
Look at that tail,
yeah, it was quite a deal.
twin tail.
It's kind of a weird-looking aircraft. Anyway,
Yeah.
it only about 2 months it was there. The squadron had like 3 or 4 birds, and then they moved them out for some reason. I think that they just weren't conducive to the type of missions that we were using there at Vietnam at the time.
Do you know what kind of ordnance it carried?
Well, those pods that you seen on the hung there were the same
Right.
pods that we had on our Hueys.
Oh wow!
But they also had a gun in the middle that shot 7.62 rounds. You know, the belts.
Okay.
The pilots would activate that, because there wasn't no gunners on there. It was just pilots.
All right. Very interesting. All right, what do we got here now?
That's just some propaganda leaflets that the United States used to throw out of airplanes to the civilians in Vietnam to try to make them go to our side of thinking how things should be in their country and against the North Vietnamese.
And
They'd come down from the sky like snow, just like a snowstorm.
right.
They threw out probably tens of thousands at a time over villages.
Do you think that it was effective?
It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
I
I didn't know if you guys had a lot of
don't think it was that effective because
refugees from the north, or
most of the time the Vietnamese are all poor, so their thing was if I have enough to eat and whatever, they didn't really get into the type of thing that we were into about, that war thing.
And how about this photo?
Aerial view of our Quang Tree Air Base and the Quang Tree River in the background, and the residence areas, the hooches we lived in were on the upper right-hand corner,
Okay.
and then all the helicopters were in that area where it's shown. Then you can see where the runway is on the bottom. And the fuel dumps were those blackened areas.
Right.
That was fuel bladders. And
Wow.
amazingly enough, we got hit with 122 rockets, especially in the spring of March several times. It hit our aircraft and did a lot of damage, but miraculously they never hit the fuel dumps once.
I was gonna say if they hit those, man, they would.
It
go
would have been like
kablooey.
that Don Ha deal.
Yeah. What do they got over here on the right-hand side of the lower right-hand side? What's down there?
That's part of the like crash crew and the area where like a maintenance area.
Okay. And our next photo we got here.
That's our living quarters in Quang Tree. Each hooch, I think there's like 8 or 10 of us that lived in each one of those hooches that the CBs had built for us. When we first got to Quang Tree, the first 2 months we lived in a tent, just like that tent in the back.
Right.
And
I see that.
so as time went on, the Seabees built those hooches for us.
And they were made out of wood, or
Yeah, it was basically woods, and then they had a tin roof, corrugated
Okay.
tin roof, wooden floor. It was up off the ground about a foot and a half above the ground.
a lot of rain over there.
Yeah, it rained a lot.
Yeah.
Well,
So with the
when I
tin,
got there in November, it was raining about every day.
I asked because with the tin roofs, I would think you'd hear a lot of.
But we lived in those tents when it rained the most.
Oh, okay.
That was the worst part of the whole deal. And then when I got there, in first part, on the 15th of December, when I was there for several weeks, we got hit with mortars for the first time on that new base because it was a relatively new base. It just started, and so there was no sandbags around our tents where we lived like there is there.
Right.
Because
I see that.
eventually those
Well, I see the sandbags. here.
Eventually, when they took those tents down, we had to transport those by hand over and put them around our new hooches. So anyway, the 15th of December, we got hit with mortars. There was like 60 of us on base total, and I think like 25 or 30 got hit with mortar shrapnel because the biggest reason there was no sandbags around it, and another reason is we're all new guys, so the bunker we had was quite a ways away, so everybody just started running. It was real dark at night when we got hit. Everybody started running instead of getting on the ground. And
Okay.
so that's why a lot of people got hit, because running, the shrapnel was just flying everywhere.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. If they had incoming like that, what was the protocol if it wanted to hit the floor?
Yeah, well, as soon as the first munition went off, there was a siren on base that went off.
Okay.
So everybody was supposed to get to their nearest bunker. And then the next morning, when it got light, I noticed I was sleeping in like the left-hand upper corner of that tent. Not that tent, but one like it.
Okay.
And the whole side of the tent was shredded with shrapnel holes.
Jeez.
So evidently, I got out of there just in time.
And our next photo here is.
That's some 122 millimeter rockets that the North Vietnamese shot at us for several months in the spring of '68. You can see the concrete depth of like 3 inches there. And then
Right. What's the.
that's Marshall matting that hooked together that our whole flight line was used.
Okay.
They used for their whole flight line. And a few weeks ago, I went to Idaho to visit a friend of mine that graduated from high school with me, Terry Elbers, and he was in a CB at the time in the same area in Quang Tree. And so in Idaho, when I visited him a few weeks ago, I hadn't seen him in 54 years. We were stationed there at the same time, and I hadn't seen him just once when we were there. But anyway, he said they formed the flight line by putting pre-mixed concrete bags like you can buy at Home Depot now,
Okay.
side
That's
by
it,
side, and they'd take an axe and bust the top out of it and peel the paper back, and then they would soak it down with a water truck, and then roll over a big old roller like they use on making highways to flatten it out, and then they put those corrugated steel units on top.
And
That's some of the pilots observing the damage the next morning.
yeah, you could see the blades
Yeah.
here in the background, and where was this at again?
Quang Tree.
Okay.
That was some of the
Oh, what do we got here?
damage from the rockets from the hangar. It blew the roof off and some of the sides.
Wow. And here's some more damage.
Some of our helicopters did take direct hits. I don't think I have any pictures on here of them, but they took direct hits and blew them up. It's another hangar that got hit near there.
Was this from mortar fire?
No, 122 millimeter rockets.
Oh, rockets. Okay.
Yeah, mortar fire is basically just shrapnel.
Shrapnel. Okay.
That's me standing in one of the holes.
And how tall are you then?
How tall am I? Was that?
At that time, yeah.
Probably about 5'8".
5'8", so that was probably about what, 2.5?
Probably,
2.5 feet?
yeah, somewhere around there.
Wow. What was your rank at the time?
E3,
E3.
Lance Corporal.
And what was your main responsibility?
I was in ordnance, and it was basically either flying or screwing rockets, the heads on the rockets to assemble them for the rockets that the pods had on our helicopters. And then going to those rearming areas that we had out in the field. That was where a rocket landed behind our ordnance compound there next to the runway next morning. You can see the water level there, how shallow the water table was in the area because of the amount of rain they get all the time.
I was going to say, it looks like there's water in the...
Yeah. That's a bridge the CB's built across a river going from, I was on a convoy taking rockets to LZ Stud. The CB's put wood over those Vietnamese sampans to make a bridge. We started going across, and I go, well, I don't know about this.
Pretty ingenuity, or you know what I'm trying to say. It's here we go.
That was CH-53 bringing back one of our Hueys that got shot down. That was quite a similar event.
Just so I understand what you're saying, the helo on the top
went out in the field and picked up the shot down one.
On the bottom?
Yeah. You can see
and it's towing it, because I see the line there.
You can see the tow line.
Yeah. I did not know that was possible.
Oh, yeah. That's an 01 spotter plane that was used. There's like 2 or 3 of them on our base.
Okay. I was going to say, it kind of looked like one for World War II or something.
It's a two-seater. Yeah, it was a very old one. It was a two-seater. Flew very slow, but they had a pilot in front and an observer in the back, and he had just the observer in the back never had a stick. All he had was just the foot pedals. So I put this on this presentation because I wanted to tell the story about one day I was looking up and I seen one of them circling the airfield kind of erratically, and I go, what's going on with this guy? So anyway, we kept observing it. When it came down to the end of the runway, it touched down, and when it touched down, it started bouncing up in the air and coming down and bouncing up again. And then when it got about in the middle of the runway, right where our ordnance compound was, it flipped up on the side. So a few of us ordnance guys went over there, and the crash crew got there about the same time. And so we got a hold of the wing and flipped it upright. The pilot was shot in the head dead. And the observer in the back landed the aircraft by reaching over the dead guy with the stick.
That's amazing. I thought you were describing a cartoon there at first, the way you were saying it would, that when the plane came in and hit, it would jump up and then down. And
so
wow.
being on that ordnance compound near the center of the runway and nearby, we got to observe quite a few things that happened unordinarily.
What do we got in the background behind the plane there?
That's just
Can you tell?
CH-53 helicopters.
Okay, all right.
They were just taxiing out to leave. It's usually mostly for transport. That's a stray dog that came on base, and it was the only dog on base, and one of the people in our hooch took it in and kept it around there for a while.
Looks like a lot of sand.
Yeah, it's real deep there too, and it's the only place in Vietnam I guess it's like that, basically, except probably along the beaches. But we were probably 10 or 15 miles from the beach or more, inland from the South China Sea. So it was quite an unusual place compared to LZ Stud and Camp Carroll, where it was all red dirt.
Let's look at the next photo here.
That's me in front of our hooch that we lived in. You can see how ramshackle that door is.
Yeah, what are you drinking there? You can tell?
That's a can of Slits.
Ah,
We never had beer there hardly at all, but one time when me and another person went there, we took a few cans that we kind of saved up because we only allowed a couple cans a day, like a couple times a week.
right.
So we took up there 10 or 12 beers that lasted a couple weeks to have one once in a while.
Oh, I think Schlitz is still brewed.
Pardon?
I think that Schlitz is still brewed.
Yeah, it still is.
Looks like we got some
That's-
money here.
Yeah, that's Vietnamese money.
Do you still have it? Or is it
No.
just a photo?
No, it's just I donated all this stuff and all these photos to the local Sierra Vista Museum here, and so I donated all this stuff.
Very cool.
The
I'm looking
the
because I've
top
never
photo-
seen them.
The top photo is the MPC military payment currency we used on base, because us Americans weren't allowed to have any greenback currency while we were in Vietnam. So what we do on payday every 2 weeks, we'd go to the paymaster and they'd dole out how many of those that we wanted for the month to buy stuff in our PX, which was very limited what we could buy. And then they just take it out of our account.
On this one here,
But
this
the
red
bottom
one.
ones are Vietnamese, actual Vietnamese money.
On the red one here, who's that? Do we know who that is on there? On that 100, who that picture is?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't know that much about Vietnamese money.
I don't even know how I came about those bills, but somehow or another I got a hold of them.
Look at that. Look at the artwork. Wow.
I think they were called piastres. That's a local villager. He's like, I think he said he was 16. He used to come up to our perimeter once in a while and we'd give him cigarettes. And we'd kind of talk to each other. I didn't know any Vietnamese. He knew some English, but very little. He lived across the river, in that village across the river.
And what's the building right there? Do we know?
It was an old building that was probably there before the Marine Corps put in the air base.
Okay.
That's me taking a picture of aerial bombing. Our aircraft bombed the North Vietnamese. Took that picture right in front of that hut that we had seen previously. So at nighttime, we were up there, two of us all by ourselves with no perimeter, no radio to contact anybody. And in the daytime, we knew that NVA was nearby. So it gave us quite a bit of anxiety at night for sleeping.
I think that's it for the photos. How about that? Very interesting. Thank you for bringing those photos in. I appreciate that. That was the first time that we got to do that. So, and now we're back to our live stream here. I appreciate again the photos. So you you get back from Vietnam, and where is the first place that you lived? Oh
I
man!
went back to Iowa for 30 days of leave, and then in January I went to Yuma Air Station, Yuma Marine Corps Air Station for 22 months.
And where's that at?
Yuma, Arizona.
Oh, in Yuma. Okay, all right.
That's how I got to Arizona the first time.
So, and that was what year?
1969.
69. And then where did you go from there?
Well, I stayed there 22 months and I got out of the Marine Corps in 1970.
Okay.
Went back to Iowa for several months, and then I think for almost 9 or 10 months, and when it started getting cold the next fall, I worked with a guy that his uncle lived in Tucson. So I said, let's just quit our job and go to Tucson because uncle said he could get me a job doing carpentry work.
Okay.
So that's how I got to this area the first time.
I was going to ask you, how do you feel that your service in the Marine Corps prepared you for future endeavors, I guess you could say, or jobs outside on the civilian side?
Well, it prepared me, whereas you don't get upset about small stuff where everybody gets excited about and worrying about this, that, and another. Where we go, it makes you get through life with less stress.
Well, it has to be very difficult too if you're in your MOS and you're doing like ammunitions and stuff like that. It's not like you can get out of the military and go into the civilian workforce and say, yeah, I'd like to be an ammunition specialist. I mean, there's not like that job is like working at, like McDonald's or Burger. I mean, what I'm trying to say is the jobs, they're just not there for that type of work.
Yeah, and plus I worked construction a year and a half before I went in the Marine Corps, so I was familiar with, and I enjoyed doing that type of work.
So what kind of construction was it? You said carpentry?
Yeah, we framed houses.
Okay.
I worked for an outfit called Arizona Framers, and there was 3 owners. One of them was Stan Greer, which is known around Sierra Vista quite a bit because
and they're still here.
He started the Sierra Vista Rod and Gun Club. Anyway, I worked for him for 4 years in Tucson and his company, and then he decided to move down here in 1976 because we were driving back and forth for about a year and a half from Tucson. So he moved down here, and I moved down here with him, and then I worked for him here doing carpentry work for a few months, and then I started my own remodeling business when I was 30 years old. And then I did that for 28 years here in Sierra Vista.
So you've been here for a while then,
Since
few years.
1976.
And how did you find the Warrior Healing Center?
I knew somebody that was coming here and donating things, a friend of mine here in town. So they recommended I go here and check the place out and see what kind of opportunities they had that I could take advantage of.
Okay.
And so that's how I got to come here in the first place. And it seems like a really good place for us military veterans to kind of share our different history of our background. We're in the military. And
what was one of the biggest benefits or resources that you took advantage of here at the Warrior Healing Center when you first came in?
well, the biggest advantage I took is when I think the first day I came here, I met Dan Shaw,
Okay.
and he started to explain to me about VetLinks, which is an organization run by future veterans that are disabled, and it's a private company. And so I get 60% disability now, and Dan told me I should try to contact them and see if it's possible to get my percentage raised,
Get your rating boosted?
my
Yeah.
rating. So I contacted them, and they gave me an interview, and I'm in the process now with them to try to get the VA to raise my rating from 60 to 100.
One of the best things about VetLinks, I'm finding out, is that everything that they do is outside of the VA system. So all of your reports that are written, doctors that you see, everything, it's all prepared outside the VA system. And then when it's all done and ready and sent in to the VA, it's very successful. It's a very successful program from what I've been told.
Yeah, and all of them are supposedly disabled veterans, so they understand the process and the steps that are necessary to go through with the VA to have a better chance of getting your rating increased.
Are there any kind of hobbies or any kind of community activities that you're involved with here in Cochise County?
I belong to the American Legion.
American Legion, okay.
And I participate in some of their activities.
Okay.
But I haven't been here at the Healing Center that long, so I'm trying to keep track of what kind of activities that are here so I can participate in more of them in the future.
There's always interesting events that are happening here. You never know what's going to be going on from 1 minute to the next. There's just so many great things that are going on here. And the cost to the veteran is absolutely nothing but their time.
Yes.
Right? And you could come in and there's a nice break room here that they have where you can come in and sit down in there. You could have a nice cup of coffee or whatever might be in the refrigerator to drink. Sometimes there's little snacks out. And I've seen veterans just come in and relax. And then, you know, they get so relaxed in that room, I've actually seen them fall asleep. Yes, Angel, I'm talking about you if you ever watching these, but they do. They come in and then again that connection with other veterans. So, what is one thing, what piece of advice that you could give to veterans that just recently got out of the military or active duty military that are getting out soon? What piece of advice would you impart to them as far as how to prepare for civilian life or anything of that nature?
I think the Warrior Healing Center has some kind of not a program, but people involved in helping people with that.
Yes.
And I talked to somebody recently that was involved in a private program that helps those people. I think with our social media nowadays that you could probably get on websites, and that's what I would recommend. Get on websites and try to research these different things from state to state. There's probably different entities that will help a veteran get back into civilian life.
Well, I do know that the Warrior Healing Center does have a Facebook page, and to my knowledge, they're like one of the only centers in existence that offer these kind of resources and stuff like that. And I was also told, I haven't experienced one yet. I'd like to go up sometime and sit in and watch one, but I guess there's also what they call a TAP program up there where it's a transition and where they're transitioning to help. We didn't have that when we transitioned out from into the civilian life, but they offer that now, so that's...
Yeah, I'd recommend going to the VA because a lot of people don't realize the programs that they have.
Right.
And they keep increasing them all the time to help people transition.
And another thing that the VA does too is they're always changing and upgrading and updating their claims process and stuff. Like they're always coming out with more and more presumptives for like Agent Orange. They're coming out with burn pit for our Gulf War veterans. And so they're always, at least they're keeping up on it now. And I have to give them their props for that. Do you have any last words you'd like to share with us here before we...
Well, it's just that I appreciate the opportunity to present this to other people that would view this presentation, and you and Dan for helping me transition through it.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. I've met you, I think, once or twice, and I think that you're a great guy. I'm talking to Don on the phone, and I didn't even know that it was him, and then he walks in the door. Again, not knowing who he is, and I saw his face, I was like, I know who you are. And then Dan says, yeah, that's Don Anderson. That's who you're interviewing. Like, oh, man. So
Yeah, sometimes as we get older, you have to see a face or hear a name once or twice to get it to register in your brain.
Ain't that the truth? And like during this interview, I'm sitting here, I know the question that I want to ask or the follow-up or something like that, but then when I start, it's like, so. All right, well, I have a few events that I need to read here real quick. Would you mind sitting here with me real quick? And
Okay.
it shouldn't take that long for me to
Okay.
go through them. So some of the events that we have going on here at the Warrior Healing Center this coming week, we have the Gratitude Drum Circle that will be today, starting at 1,600 hours, and that goes to 1,800 hours. And that will be here at the Warrior Healing Center out in the parking lot is where they usually do that. Also tonight, they're going to have the American Legion Riders Dinner and Bike Night, and that's going to be at American Legion Post 52 here in Sierra Vista, and that will be starting at 1,700 hours and going to 1,900 hours. Tomorrow, Velo Vets, great group. It's a group of disabled veterans. Stu Carter runs it. They get together and they do a bike ride every Wednesday and Saturday. They will be meeting at Pueblo del Sol Country Club parking lot to start their ride at 0700 hours. Saturday at 0900 hours at Parker Lake. That's kind of ways from here, but still worth it. Team RWB paddle time. I'm guessing that's paddling in canoes or something. And it goes to 1,400 hours. Also tomorrow, starting at 0930, we have the weekly PMCS here at the Warrior Healing Center. They meet in the recreation room and goes till 10:30 in the morning. Tomorrow we'll be having the karaoke at the American Legion Post 24, and that starts at 1,800 hours and goes until closing. One thing, and I promote this quite a bit, it's not that I'm promoting any one branch over another, but it's just that they have a lot of announcements. They do this every Monday. They get a good turnout. It's the Marine Corps League Breakfast, and they meet every Monday starting at 0900, and they go to 1,000 hours, and they meet at the Landmark Cafe. Don, have you ever been to one?
Yeah, I went to one this Monday.
Yeah, what'd you think of it?
It's very good. There's like 15 guys there.
15, wow.
Yeah.
That's light. So on Monday, we also have, starting at 1730, going to 1830, the 5 treasures of Qigong here at the Warrior Healing Center. My wife brought me lunch today. She walked in the door. She saw the sign that said 5 treasures of Qigong, and she says, Michael, we are doing that. So I'll let you know how that goes. On Thursday, July 21st, at 0900, going to 1100, we're going to be having our bagels and brew right here at the Warrior Healing Center, which is a very good event. No, it's a great event. Free coffee, free food, free camaraderie.
What is that again?
Bagels and brew
No,
is
when?
on July 21st.
Okay. Is that
Yeah.
on a Friday? Is it?
That's a Thursday.
Thursday, okay.
Yeah, my birthday's July 20th, so Thursday, July 21st,
Okay.
bagel and brew. So that's how come I knew it was on what the date was. And then Thursday, July 21st, starting at 1700 hours and going to 1830, we have the Flutes for Vet Circle here at the Warrior Healing Center. I don't know if you've ever heard them play, but it's very, very peaceful, tranquil, and you have to experience it. I can't really explain it. And last on the list here, Thursday, starting at 1830, going to 1930, we have the Warrior Headspace and Timing. That's here at the Warrior Healing Center in the main conference room. Also, I wanted to throw out one more. I know it's a week away, but sometimes I like to get these out ahead since it's next Friday. Next Friday, starting at 1600 hours and going to 1800 hours, there's going to be the Gratitude Drum Circle will be here at the Warrior Healing Center. At 1700 hours to 1900 hours, it's the Legion Steak Night. And that's going to be at American Legion Post 52, and that will be on Friday, July 22nd. And last, Friday, July 22nd, starting at 1800 and going to 2000, we have bingo, American Legion Post 24. I volunteer and help out in bingo, and it's a blast. I love it. I love volunteering and helping out, and the people, and bingo players are very superstitious. They have their ways of doing things. Watch out when you go play bingo. That's all I got to say.
Can I have this, or can I have a copy?
You may have it. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you very much.
Because we have plenty of those, so you may have it. And if you come into the Warrior Healing Center and come into the lobby, I'll have some of these extra ones if anybody would like to see what some of the events are coming up this next week.
Okay.
So, Don, thank you again
Thanks a lot,
so
Michael.
much for joining us, man. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your service. Thank you for sharing your photographs, your story. It's just very touching and very inspiring. We appreciate all that you've done for us today, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Hey, Cochise County, take care. I'll be back again next Friday. Take care.